Welcome to Southwest Desert, where adventure meets the arid beauty of the American Southwest. Join me as we explore Southwest's lost historical characters, stunning desert vistas, forgotten Native American history, or tales of lost gold mines. There's always something new to discover. Subscribe now and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on our latest desert adventures. Let's journey together into the heart of the Southwest Desert. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Southwest Desert Channel, where we bring you stories of the rugged individuals who shaped the Southwest frontier. Today, we're diving into the life of Frank Coffey, one of the last great prospectors of the Southern California desert. Get ready for a tale of adventure, perseverance, and endless storytelling. It's the early 1900s, and the vast deserts of Southern California are still largely unexplored. Amidst the harsh landscape of sand and rock, a lone figure trudges along, leading a small group of burros. This is Frank Coffey, a man who would become known as the Mayor of Dos Palmas and one of the desert's most colorful characters. Frank Coffey wasn't your typical prospector. A graduate mining engineer, he had a formal education that set him apart from many of his peers. But it wasn't his technical knowledge that made him a legend in these parts. No, it was his unparalleled ability to spin a yarn that would keep listeners captivated for hours on end. Imagine sitting around a campfire under the star-filled desert sky, the flames flickering as Frank Coffey's rich voice weaves a tale that seems to have no end. That was the experience many had when they encountered this self-proclaimed man of few words. Thank you for joining your desert frontiersman, Alan. If you enjoy these desert tales and would like to support my channel and time, hit the super thanks heart icon on the bottom of the video and contribute. This is very helpful. Frank's story began in the 1880s when he first started prospecting in the Colorado and Mojave deserts. For decades, he roamed the harsh landscape, always in search of that elusive big strike. But unlike many prospectors who were driven by dreams of wealth, Frank seemed content with the journey itself. In 1906, Frank's engineering background came in handy when he worked with the Southern Pacific Railroad. At the time, they were racing against nature, trying to keep their tracks above the rising waters of the Salton Sea. This flood, caused by a breach in the Colorado River, was threatening to swallow up miles of vital railway. Frank's expertise helped the railroad stay one step ahead of the encroaching water. But it was in the rugged canyons of the Chocolate and Chuckawalla Mountains where Frank truly felt at home. With his trusted burros by his side, he explored every nook and cranny of this unforgiving terrain. These animals weren't just beasts of burden to Frank. They were his companions, his confidants, and often his only audience. Frank's love for his burros was legendary. He treated them more like family than livestock. In fact, one of his closest friends was another prospector named Gus Lederer, known as the Mayor of Corn Springs. These two desert rats had a unique tradition. Once a year, they would visit each other, but not alone. No, they brought their entire herds of burros along for the journey. It was a sight to behold. Two weathered prospectors leading a parade of donkeys across the desert landscape. Now, let's talk about Frank's culinary skills, or lack thereof. His signature dish was something he proudly called Coffey's leatheries. These were flapjacks so dense and chewy that only a burro could truly appreciate them. Every Sunday morning, Frank would whip up a batch big enough to last the week, sharing them with his four-legged friends. It was a testament to the hardiness of desert life that anyone, man or beast, could survive on such fare. But Frank's generosity didn't stop at feeding his burros. He was known for his hospitality, always ready to share a meal with travelers, even if that meal was of questionable quality. His coffee was infamous, brewed from the salty, alkaline water of Dos Palmas Spring and often made with grounds that had been reused for days. And don't get us started on his beans, seasoned with so much chili they lit fire to the stomach. Frank's cabin at Dos Palmas was a sight to behold. His unique approach to housekeeping involved layering newspapers on his table, adding a fresh one each week until the stack was thick enough to serve as impromptu placemats. Dishes, well, those were simply tossed into a tub of warm spring water to soak, sometimes for weeks on end. But what Frank lacked in culinary and cleaning skills, he more than made up for with his storytelling. People would travel for miles just to hear him spin a tale. One listener reported that Frank once started a story at 10 in the morning and continued, almost without interruption, until midnight. And even then, he wasn't finished. He picked up right where he left off at daybreak the next morning. Frank's stories were as vast and winding as the desert canyons he explored. They could meander for hours, taking unexpected turns and detours, much like his prospecting expeditions. And just when you thought you'd reached the end, Frank would find a new vein to follow, leading his captive audience deeper into the tale. But life wasn't always easy for Frank. Despite his years of prospecting, he never struck it rich. He lived on the edge of poverty, often relying on the kindness of strangers or the occasional grub stake from an unsuspecting tenderfoot. But even in lean times, Frank's spirit remained unbroken. He had a knack for turning his misfortunes into entertaining anecdotes, ensuring that he rarely went hungry as long as there were new ears to hear his stories. One of Frank's clever schemes involved inviting newcomers to see his famous needle, a spectacular clay and conglomerate formation in a nearby canyon. He'd time these expeditions to span the lunch hour, ensuring a free meal and often some leftover supplies. It was a testament to Frank's charm that his victims rarely minded being taken advantage of in this way. The price of a meal seemed small in exchange for the entertainment Frank provided. Frank's presence in the desert wasn't just about survival or the search for gold. He had a deep appreciation for the harsh beauty of his surroundings and a sense of responsibility to his fellow desert travelers. Along his regular routes, he'd leave handwritten signs inviting strangers to share a meal or make use of his campsites. These messages, written in his surprisingly elegant handwriting, were like breadcrumbs of hospitality scattered across the barren landscape. One touching example of Frank's hidden depths was his treatment of a small, unmarked grave near Dos Palmas Spring. The story goes that a family of travelers had lost their baby while camping at the spring. They buried the child in a shallow grave and moved on, leaving no marker. This didn't sit right with Frank. He traveled 50 miles to the Chocolate Mountains, found a suitable piece of soapstone, and carried it back by burro. He then carved an inscription for "Poor Baby White" and placed it at the grave. For years afterward, Frank made sure fresh flowers were placed on the tiny grave, a poignant gesture from a man who presented himself as a rough, carefree prospector. Frank's life wasn't all tall tales and pancakes, though. He had a strong sense of justice, as evidenced by his involvement in a dispute over water rights at Corn Springs. When a wealthy mine promoter tried to sue a widow for her water holdings, Frank stepped up to testify on her behalf. He was proud of standing up for the underdog, often declaring, "Say, I'd sell a gold mine to a rich man, but I'd never sue a widow." It was a statement he'd repeat with increasing volume and enthusiasm. As the years went by, the desert began to take its toll on Frank. His body, weathered by decades of harsh living, began to fail him. His friends, concerned for his welfare, managed to get him to the Riverside County Hospital under the guise of a casual car ride. But for a free spirit like Frank, the confines of a hospital were unbearable. He was later moved to a nursing home, but even that was a poor substitute for the open desert he loved. In October 1936, at the age of 77, Frank Coffey passed away. He died as he had lived much of his life, alone but far from the desert he called home. But while Frank may have felt isolated in his final days, his legacy lived on in the memories of those who had known him and in the stories that continued to circulate long after he was gone. Today, Frank Coffey's name lives on in the very landscape he roamed for so many years. Coffey Spring, nestled in a gulch just north of the Salton Sea in the Chocolate Mountains, stands as a lasting tribute to this colorful character of the American West. As we reflect on the life of Frank Coffey, we're reminded of a time when the American West was still wild and untamed. Frank represented a breed of men and women who faced the harsh realities of desert life with resilience, humor, and an unquenchable spirit of adventure. He may not have struck it rich in gold, but Frank Coffey's true wealth lay in the stories he told, the friendships he forged, and the indelible mark he left on the history of the Southern California desert. His life serves as a reminder that sometimes the journey itself, with all its hardships and joys, is the real treasure. This has been the Southwest Desert. Join us next time as we continue to explore the lives of the remarkable individuals who shaped the Southwest frontier. Until then, may your coffee be strong, your stories be long, and your spirit be as free as Frank Coffey's. Happy trails! Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more great content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.